Hey everybody, and welcome to the stream. I hope you like the intro music. I had it made as a bespoke project for this stream, so if you like the music, you can follow the two creators, Young Elia and Cloves. One of them is actually my son, Young Elia. And after doing so many live streams, I thought I should ask him if he could create a piece of music for me. So he studied music production and he's been creating electronic music and beats for a very long time now. So I thought it's only right for him to, be part of the stream as well. So, it's great to see you all here. Hey Lars, hey Seki, hey Adnan. Wow, so a bunch of new people here. That's great, and a couple of regulars. So the way how we run this stream is I'll just show you what I'm working on, and sometimes I prepare stuff, sometimes I don't have time to prepare. So today, instead of preparing for the stream, I prepared for the stream, which sounds funny, right? So what I did was I actually completely reinstalled the machine that this is running off of. So I'm using two machines so that everything runs smoothly. And this machine that's sitting down here, I wiped it clean, reinstalled macOS Tahoe, and reinstalled OBS, reinstalled all the other pieces of software that I need to run the stream. So that took quite a bit of time. So what we're going to do on the stream today is completely fresh, completely unprepared, but it'll be fine. So you'll see me going through all the struggles that you might go through as well. And that is part of the fun, right? Okay, and with that, let's take a look at what I've done here. And let me actually double check that this screen looks good on the stream as well, because yeah, I think we should be fine. Yeah, it's good. So today I want to look at SwiftUI's new WebView. So the application that I've been working on, this knowledge base application, has a WebView, but the WebView that I'm using is something that is custom made, or it's a component that I installed from a repository, and we can look at it in a moment. So instead of continuing to do that, I thought, why not try out the new WebView? Because if we look at how this actually works, it seems to be super simple, right? So why not make use of this super simple API and see if we can reap the benefits? So the downside of that is it's only available on iOS 26, and I want the application to also support previous iOS versions, and that is why we'll probably need to write a wrapper, but we'll figure it out as we go. So let's take a look at the code, and while I'm going to find the code, I'm going to start the application real quick on the simulator. So here in the application, we've got our artifact lists. Let's quickly look around. So we've got our artifact viewer here, and the artifact viewer is over here in the artifact viewer package. So I moved this out of the main application and moved it into this separate Swift package to make it easier to reason about. And if we look at how this is set up, we have our view, and inside the body we have a component that's called ReeeeD and the ReeeD is an open source component that is actually part of an application. So if we look at that, so this is a really nice application. It allows you to register a couple of sources, and then it will automatically download the latest news and pieces of information from those sources. So you can register your stock ticker, for example. You can register any site that has an RSS feed. It will also show your latest videos or flashbacks, latest photos or flashbacks of them. It shows you the weather and all sorts of things. So it's a really nice application. And it has this feature where if you, so this part here, super fast reader mode. So instead of showing you the original, maybe complicated HTML rendering, it shows you a simplified version and also removes the ads. And that is one of the reasons why I'm using this in my application as well. So let's take a real quick look at how this looks like in our application. So here we have, and I'm going to switch to light mode. And here we have our inbox, and in the inbox, we've got 2 articles at the moment. And if I click on this article here, it will show this article in a simplified version. It includes the source code snippets, and even videos and images. And if you think, well, maybe I'm missing parts of the information, you can click on this button and then it'll show you the original layout, and you can see that it is different, right? So you can see that the colors are different, potentially the fonts might be different. Now we have this whole menu thing here, which is typically not something that you would need if you just want to quickly read the article. And then here is a piece of advertisement for Natalia's book, which I wholeheartedly recommend. It's a really good book, and more links. So, and I think once you switch back from the simplified version to this regular version, there's no way to switch back. So that is probably something that you'd have to hook up in the UI. So this is how this ReeeD works. And here is a blog post that I wrote a while ago. And as you know, I have a pretty clean layout on my blog, but this one is still simplified. And we can switch back to the default look and feel. And here you can see how this would look like on my blog. Okay. So this is the ReeeD. So the first thing that I want to do is I'll want to create a new package, and that package will contain my own web view. And the reason why I want to put it into a package is that this allows me to encapsulate the functionality. So I can basically say, well, if I'm on iOS 26, then I can use SwiftUI's built-in WebView. And if we are on any previous versions, we can use maybe the ReeeD or maybe something else. And I'll probably use the ReeeD for now, and then we'll figure it out. Okay, so if this all sounds good, why don't you throw me a heart emoji like this one up here, and then we can get started. Also, it's custom for people who are on the stream to just you've already waved hello, but if you want, you can either let me know from where you're dialing in so that I know how many continents we've got represented, because, I want to run this stream until we've finally covered all the continents. That would be a dream. It might be a little bit unrealistic, or I might have to find a time that works for everybody. And also, let me know, what is your beverage of choice? I'm using just plain water today. And so let's see if the mute button works. Yep, this is looking good. Okay, so let's create a new package. And it's been a while since we've last created packages for the Sophia app. And I'll show you one thing that I typically do to make this work nicely. Okay, so File, New, Package, and then it's going to be a library. And we'll find a place for it. So are we in the correct folder? Yeah, seems to be the correct one. So I'm going to call it, let's call it WebView. And then, of course, make sure that we put it into the right package. And then we'll add it to this workspace and into this main group up here. And that makes sure that the package is added into our project at the correct place. So here we go. And there is one more thing. So you might notice that I've organized those packages in a somewhat logical order. So we've got the model first, we've got the store, we've got the memory store. So the store contains the protocol, and we've got concrete implementations of the protocol. We've got the artifact viewer, which we will be working on now, and that contains the entire view as well as a nodes editor. We've got metadata services, metadata UI, summarization service, semantic QA, a couple of utilities, a package for wrapping Google Analytics, the authentication package, and a bunch of SwiftUI extensions. For example, the backport stuff that we worked on a couple of streams ago. So I think that this is probably going to be a good candidate to sit down here, because it is a, let's say, it is a component that I might be able to reuse later on. So it's like a component that's independent of the application logic to a certain extent. Okay. And then let's format this. This is empty. All right, so, and let's see if naming it WebView was such a great idea. So we've got this really nice article that Sarah wrote a while ago. And here she shows how to use the WebView, and I already am doubting my decision to call it WebView, but we'll find out if it was stupid or not. So we might call it custom WebView, but let's see. So first of all, I'm going to, well, I'll leave this, and then I'll create a new file from template. Let's see if this works. SwiftUI View. Yeah, so here's the thing that I always find very funny. If you create a new SwiftUI file inside of Xcode in a normal iOS project, it will always ask you, hey, what do you want to name it? But if you create it inside a package, it will just name it SwiftUI View, which I don't understand why. So, first things first, Vue is only available on iOS 13 or newer, so we will have to specify which platforms we want to target. And let's just say iOS version I think we said 17. Let me double check. Yep, version 17. For real? Or is it just the missing comma? Is it? Oh no, it's not .ios. Oh, it is .ios, but then it's probably .v17. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so clean this up and remove this. All right. So custom WebView. And then we are going to, and then we can use a URL, TPS apple.com. All right, so cannot call value of non-function type module. Yeah, there you go. So that is, so, you know, this error is here because we named the module WebView, and now it thinks that we want to instantiate the module. Let me see if this resolves the problem. Nope. Nope. Okay. You know what? We'll just copy this, and then I'm going to delete this, move to trash, and then we'll just start over. File, new, package, custom web view packages, and add it to the correct group. And move it down here. Clean up, add the packages, the platforms, iOS.v17, like this, and then new file, and then oops, I'll just rename it. I probably could have just copied and pasted the entire file, right? Because if you paste an entire file, Xcode tries to derive the file's name and use that as the file name. So, and, ooh, that, oh, Yeah, so that is interesting. What does the documentation say? You know, that's the funny thing. I never know where to look in Apple's documentation to find out which package you need to import, which module you need to import. I assume you would probably have to import WebKit, but it doesn't tell you, right? So that is for AppKit. Also, I assume that we might have an issue because we are on iOS 17. So, but okay, so it actually requires that we need to pass a proper URL. So now it says it's only available in iOS 26 or newer, and obviously that's right. So what we are going to do is we are going to implement a availability check. And for the time being, I'll just display not available if we are not on iOS 26. And later, we will replace this for something more meaningful. Oh, hi, Noe. So, let's see if we can actually show the preview. Not found in any targets. Okay, so let's see what is the issue here. Yeah, so I probably need to add it to the list of frameworks that we're using in the main target. And then let's try this again. So this is looking good, or vaguely promising. And while we're waiting for the compiler to do its thing or the simulator to boot up in the background, let's try to take a look. Oh, there we go. Let's try to take a look at Apple's own video where they talk about the new WebView. And let's see if they have, no, they don't. They don't show the import. But I recall that Sarah mentioned that there is a GitHub project, so let's take a look at that. Okay, here we go. And then here are the samples. Oh, so it's import WebKit. Let's go and try that. Still looking fine. Let's refresh. Yep, so this is looking good. Nice. So it was actually super easy to import this here. Let's try a different URL. You know, in Sarah's honor, we can use her article here. Nice. So that's super useful because now I can read her article while reading the article. That is really neat. Good. So that is one thing that we need. Now let's go back into our into the artifact viewer, because the application doesn't actually show what's behind the URL, right? So one of the reasons why I built this application is I wanted to have something that allows me to read articles later. So it started out as a typical read it later app. So what it does is it basically downloads the HTML and stores it in Firestore. And thanks to Firestore's offline capabilities, we can then retrieve that from the local database without being online. So I can't go offline now because we would lose the stream, but it actually does work. Maybe I can show it on, well, I could, let me see. We can probably use Rocket Sim to do that. So let me find where this is. Yeah, airplane mode. Nice. So we can turn on airplane mode. So this is on for just this application. How can I demonstrate that this is actually offline now? Can we do this for the entire thing? Yeah, so what we can do is we can try to make a network call. And you might remember that last time we worked on the summarization feature, which first tries to summarize locally and then tries to summarize remotely. And we need to choose an article that's too long for local summarization. So this one here is too long. So it first tries to summarize locally. And now it tries to connect to the network and it says the operation couldn't be completed and shows a technical error message. So that being said, there are two things to learn from this one. First, probably show a nicer error message. And two, since we already have the opportunity or the capability to summarize locally and then we'll try remotely, what if we, instead of failing when we can't connect to the remote, we'll use the local summarization as a fallback, like in this one here. In this one, the article is short enough to be summarized locally. In this other one here, it is not short enough. So I think what we'd probably have to do is, if we realize the article is too long for being summarized and we can't connect to the remote system, we might choose a fallback strategy of saying, in that case, we'll just maybe take a piece of the beginning and a piece of the ending and cut out the middle, because what's relevant is, well, I don't know, like we can come up with a strategy to basically condense the article before we try to summarize as a fallback. So anyways, what I wanted to demonstrate is this simulator or this application is now offline and we still can access those articles because they are stored locally in Firestore. So, Noe, what was your question? Is this all running on the virtual desktop you were telling me about? Yes, it is. So, all right, so Noe is my colleague that I run the Firebase After Hours show with. And recently I had been raving about a tool called DeskPad. And DeskPad allows me to run a virtual screen and my entire this entire thing that you see here, Xcode, the simulator and this entire desktop here is running on this virtual desktop. So I'm looking at like roughly a quarter of my large monitor here, and the rest of the monitor is covered with a view of the live stream and a couple of other windows that I put up there for reference. So I know that only the stuff that I can see myself on this screen here is what you guys see on the live stream. DeskPad, that's what it's called. And now that I've talked so much about it, let's just take a quick look here. So this one. A virtual monitor for screen sharing. So it's also super useful if you are on a Zoom call. Hey Evelyn, thanks for joining. Okay, so going back to the application. So it is running offline, and to make that work, we are not passing the URL to this reader view, but instead we're passing the styled HTML to the reader view. And we pass the base URL. But that is only there to resolve any relative URLs and stuff like that. So what we'll probably have to do is we'll probably need to use a version of the WebView that allows us to show HTML. And I think there might be a version of that. Let's take a look at Sarah's article. So, custom scheme, JavaScripting, browser. Okay, so this is where she emulates an entire browser. Nope. Maybe let's look at this. Yeah. Oh, look at that. So she's predefining HTML here. And then, okay, so there is a way. So here she defines the web view, passes in a page. The page is a web page. And then what happens with the page? Okay. Page.load and with a request. So maybe there is a way to, so first of all, private var page is a web page. Okay, so now we're in so first of all, how we're going to do this the best way. Okay, so I've turned this into a computer property, and now oh, here we go. So you can load HTML from a string, and that's what she's doing here. Nice. So let's do the same. I'm just going to copy this string here. Page.load. Page.load from HTML. Missing return, return page. And then we will use, does this work? I think we need to, well, it should work. Okay, let's see. Oh, well, so we don't know if it worked or if it didn't because it took too long. So let's first try to restart this. Nope. Maybe we need to provide this. So if this doesn't work, yeah, I mean, it's sad it doesn't work. Oh, wait, maybe, no. What happens if we do it this way? Ah, okay. Interesting. That is very interesting. So what if instead of trying to load this here, we load this on a peer? So, well, so first of all, let's print the HTML. Just to make sure that something is happening. Okay, so this actually is executed. And for, okay, so maybe that is the problem here, right? So it refers to a style sheet and we don't have that style sheet. So instead of doing that, we will just remove this style sheet and then refresh again. No, is there more? Let's clear this, refresh. Okay. What happens if we remove that? Nope. Okay, so maybe it's time to ask our trusty friend Gemini if they have an idea what's going on. Please take a look at the code in custom WebView and tell me why the HTML text is not rendering. Oh, what's that? It didn't hear me? Well, tell me, look at the code in at custom WebView and tell me why the text defined in HTML is not rendering. So Gemini read the file and now it's refining the web page strategy, unifying the web page. So let's see what it comes up with. Oh, what? Okay, so in your code, page is a computed property. This means a brand new web page instance is created every time the page property is accessed. Oh yeah, that's true. Okay. Okay. It also wants to remove the entire code that protects against this being used on non-iOS 26. I mean, let's go with it for now, and then we can make the code work on previous versions. Yeah, so it's only available on iOS 26 or newer. So as a quick fallback, we will do this and this. Okay, so now we've marked the entire custom web view as only available on iOS 26, and then the preview, we actually say it's only available on iOS 26. And here we go. We've got our local web page. Nice. Good. So this works. Now let's go back and look at how we need to call this from our artifact viewer. So we provide the styled HTML and the base URL and a title. So, I mean, we can just copy this signature. we don't have any options yet, so we can just remove that. And then we will remove this from here because we don't really need that. And then we need to provide the HTML here. The base URL is yeah, that's fine. Title. And this probably needs to be a URL. And do it this way. Nice. So, cannot find HTML in scope. That is absolutely correct, sir. And this is why we will define private. Yeah, it's probably let. Styled HTML is a string. Private let URL is URL, and I don't know, this can probably also be just a string. And then self.style self. Will assign all of those values here. Self.title. And then down here, it needs to be style HTML. So I think URL string. All right, so let's see. So it still works. And now we should be able to go into our artifact viewer. And first we'll need to import the package. So we want to import custom web view from custom web view. And then we will add that to the dependencies of the target. And now we can import this into our artifact viewer, import custom web view, and then instead of reader view, we can just say custom web view, and it complains. So I think the problem is that this is public, but this also needs to be public. And the body needs to be public as well. And no, there's still a problem. Oh yeah. So yeah, so this is a piece of complicated code, and I could say, well, please wrap this entire piece of code in an hashtag availability check, but this is not what we want to do in the long run. In the long run, we want to make sure that this component works both on iOS 26 and other versions. So instead of doing that, we are going to say, well, this is iOS 26. Comma star. Okay. So, well, in that case, we will turn it into a computed property again, huh? How about that? But then again, it will be recomputed every time. Okay. Well, okay, so we are in a double bind here. What are we to do? So, I mean, the problem is that we can't is there no way to wrap that? Okay, so let's try. This doesn't work. This will not work. So all right, so let's see if this works. I'm doubtful, but who knows? Who knows? Maybe it will work. Yep, it does work. Nice. So, and that means this should now be fine. So now we can run this. And let's see. Whoa! This works. Oh no. Oh yeah. Good. All right. So I was slightly worried there for a moment because there's still this button down here, but it's all good because this actually is in the HTML that we store in the database, which is, if you think about it, not such a super smart idea. I think we should probably store just the simplified HTML maybe even without any styling, and apply the styling once we fetch it from the database and show it in the UI. Which might also have a bunch of downsides, right? Because if it's a long piece of content, then it might take a while for it to be processed, and that's time when the user has to wait. But anyways, so this actually uses SwiftUI's new WebView, which is really great. What happens when you click here? Yeah, so it doesn't do anything, which is something that we'll need to think about, right? So the question how to handle links inside a web page like that we stored for offline consumption and for easier reading. If you click on that, then you need to figure out, oh, is this a local link that, for example, that just jumps to a different place in the page, or is it a link that points to outside? And if it points to the outside, is this maybe another interesting article, and do we want to offer the user to also store this in the database, right? So for example, I think if we look at this link here, the visual effect modifier, that is part of Apple's documentation, and that might actually be an interesting article that we can offer to store as well for the user. But all of that is stuff that, you know, we need to think about a little bit harder to figure out, like, when should we be offering this functionality to the user. So again, this looks great. And I mean, it's not surprising that it looks great, because under the hood, it's the same rendering engine, right? So it's Safari under the hood. So it absolutely should look the same, which it does. Nice. So I said we're going to implement this in a way that is backwards compatible. And this is what we're going to do. And to do that, let me see. Ah, okay, there we go. So this computed property here actually does what I talked about a moment ago. So it uses a feature of the Reeeed library that adds this additional formatting. So it adds the style sheet and all of that, and it adds this button here. That is the button that we saw at the bottom of the page. So for now, we're going to keep that, but I am going to remove that in the long run. So let's take a look at how this looked before. And yeah, I mean, it's easy. Even I should be able to remember that. So let's go here, and then let's call the reader view, and we actually need to import that. So, and to figure out the correct import, do we have, no, we don't. I'm looking for the link to the package. So let's go here, and I've probably added this somewhere here. Here we go. Oh, see, I've got a custom version of Reeeed anyways, because I had to modify the initializer. There we go. Okay. So we need to add this as a dependency. So these are the products, targets, and the target. And now we need dependencies. Well, first we need to import them here, right? Dependencies. It's a package dependency. And then we want to provide a URL. And did we specify the version? No, main. So that means we want to specify the branch, main. We need to put a comma here, and then we need to add the dependency here. And let's see if this works. There seems to be a problem. Cannot find read in scope. Why does it not? Well, yeah, so here we need to import that. And then we'll just pass these through. So apparently I made a mistake in my package file. So let's see, this should work. How's everybody doing? Are you still with me? Let's run this. Build succeeded. Oh yeah, so this should work, but now we need to run it on the previous iOS version. So let's see if I have a oh yeah, so I'll probably have to download a previous version of iOS because this is a new this is the latest version of Xcode 26, so I haven't yet installed the other simulators. Oh, here is one. So this should work. Okay, let me go and Okay, so here we have one. We can use an iPhone 16e, which runs on iOS 18.6. Build succeeded. That's always a good sign. So now let's see if it works and doesn't crash while it runs. Where is my simulator? Starting up over here. So let's open both articles side by side. And we are not signed in. No problem. Let me quickly get my Apple ID for my test account. Sign in manually to Fred Firebase and then paste the password. Really? Let's try this again. So Apple ID for Fred Firebase. This looks better. Here we go. So, I bet every one of us always feels like the person who doesn't know which button to press. Merge or don't merge. Thankfully, usually it doesn't really matter, especially for test accounts. So we are signed in, so now we can sign in with Apple in the application, paste the password, and we should get our 2 articles here. And here we go. So this uses the reader view of the read component, and this over here uses the web view. Also, did you notice, I mean, yeah, it's hard to tell apart because this is how it's supposed to look like on iOS 18, but on iOS 26, we now also have the semi-translucent header and footer area, and I'm going to show you in a minute how it used to look before. So remember this here, and maybe I can just run it on a different simulator to demonstrate this. So I'll go back to the view, and then I'm going to discard that change for a moment, and then run this on a iOS, on an iPhone Air. Let's run on an iPhone Air. Who's going to buy an iPhone Air? Let me know. I haven't had the chance to look at one in the flesh. So I did go to the Apple Store in Hamburg earlier this week, but they don't have the new devices yet. But I want to try the iPhone Air and take a look. I've heard from people that they were not convinced about the value proposition of the iPhone Air before, and once they tried it out themselves, they were convinced. Seeing is believing, I guess, right? So I want to try it out. But yeah, how about you? Anybody here who's interested in the iPhone Air? And we need to sign into this account as well. Sign in manually. Hello, get the password. And we are almost signed in. Go back to the app. Sign in with Apple. Paste the password. Nice. Okay, here we go. So, if you look at this top area here in the title bar, you can see that the text is just cut off here. And if I do this over here, it is not cut off, and we have this amazing glass effect on the back button. Here we have a back button as well, but because it's on the title bar, we don't get this amazing effect. I saw a tweet by somebody today or yesterday who was making fun of the very colorful language that Apple uses to talk about these things. So yeah, and down here, it looks great as well. So this is amazing. I am very pleased with what we've achieved today. And did you notice that except for a little bit of help, we didn't make much use of AI, but it was useful. It was useful. Good. So, I think that was mostly what I wanted to do today. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. Let me double check. Yeah, I think. Yeah, so Daniel had this really nice article about building a web view. So let's take a quick look at how he implemented it. So this article is from 2022, so it's a couple of years old. And he explained how to use the WKWebView to implement what we've just achieved today with one line of code plus a couple of additional lines of code to make it backwards compatible. But what you need to do is, okay, here's a little bit of ceremony for the initializer, and then we implement a WebView representable. Oh, and that's a wrapper, right? So yeah. So on iOS, you need to use a UI view representable. On macOS, it needs to be an NS view representable. And then inside the make UI view, you create that. Yeah, so in make view, you create the respective view. And then in try load, you load the URL request. So, and I think he also had a component that he published on GitHub. Oops, that seems to be the wrong link. Let's go here and see SwiftUI-Kit. Let's take a quick look at his repositories. Daniel has been super busy, and he's been publishing SwiftUI packages like crazy. Here we are, WebViewKit. that basically is his article, his blog post turned into a component that you can easily add to your app, and it's called WebView. So you could just, it's just a drop-in replacement basically. And I think, yeah, here we go. He added a note saying, well, you can get a native WebView, and this is only being kept around for polyfill purposes. So, I mean, if you wanted to have like a truly backportable version of a WebView, you'd have to make sure that it's truly a drop-in replacement, make sure that it supports both initialization via a URL and initialization via a web page, and you'd probably also have to polyfill the web page type to make that work. I don't know if it's worth the hassle, because in the long run everybody will be moving on to iOS 26, but it's definitely doable. All right, everybody, thanks for joining the stream. It was fun as always. Let me go to the outro page. There is still a bunch of stuff that I haven't implemented in the application. One thing that I implemented a while ago and that I can also show in one of the next streams is I implemented an MCP server that allows me to connect to my database and pull down all of the artifacts that are stored for a specific user from that database. And that is pretty cool, because that allows me to use an IDE like Cursor, for example, to pull out all the URLs that I saved myself, that I find interesting, and then use them to curate my newsletter. So the past, I don't know if it's the past two issues already or if it's just one, but I've been using it for writing the newsletter, and it's been great. So you basically just you can use the MCP server and either use the Gemini CLI or Cursor to say, I want to create a new newsletter. Can you please show me all of the articles that I've curated? It shows you a list of all the articles, and then you can say, okay, let's use this one and that one and the other one. Can you please create the boilerplate for the articles in the newsletter? It puts the boilerplate in place, and then I can go in and write my own summary and compile the newsletter, which is super fun. So that's maybe something that I'll show in one of the next streams, but there is still a bunch of other things that we can also look at. For example, using Spotlight, Core Spotlight, to implement system-wide search, deep link into the application, and also implement the local search in the application, which currently is just a lookup throughout the array. All right, that's it for today. Thanks for joining, and I will see you in the next one.